If you want more of the conventional wisdom on sales and growing revenue, this podcast isn't for you. Throw away your closing tactics, tricks, and tips and learn what the top 1% income earners do to create results. This is the OnPurpose Growth podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode of the OnPurpose Growth podcast. My name is Bryan McDonald, partner here at OnPurpose Growth. And today I have Courtney from Zippy Content on. And we're going to be talking about her entrepreneurial journey, some adversity that she's been through, because every entrepreneur has been through it, and also why podcasting is important to an entrepreneur in today's climate. And Courtney's the expert on this. And when you listen in, you'll understand what I mean by that. So Courtney, thanks for being on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, me too. I appreciate you. You have become very important to me in my business. So I'm really happy for you to be on. So why don't you give some people a background about Zippy Content and yourself, and then we'll dive right in.
So Zippy Content, what we do is we represent authors, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, etc., kind of across the board, and we find them interviews on podcasts. So we're essentially a digital PR agency. We've been sending you guests for a while, and that's how we met. So, and when people hear about what I do, it's kind of like, how did you start doing that? Like, what? Like so you find people interviews on podcasts? What's a podcast? You know what I mean? Like, I've had so many people that are just like, they just don't understand it. When I got started, I was living in my hometown, which is Hemet, California. And when I started doing it, people were just kind of like, what are you doing? I had a screaming toddler running around, and I was just kind of plunking away on my $400 laptop trying to make things happen. You know what I mean? And so, but getting to that point was a bumpy road for sure. I wasn't going to just one day go, oh, I'm going to find people interviews on podcasts. Like, I was put in a really bad situation, and it kind of forced me to think outside the box a little bit. Actually, just a couple of days ago, I celebrated my 5-year anniversary of getting clean off of opiates. I was a heroin addict. Yeah. I was actually just a all around drug addict, but the real problem was opiates for sure. And 5 years ago, I cut drugs out of my life. And it was a huge, huge change for me. You know what I mean? I came from Hemet, and Hemet is, what's the best way to put it? It's basically meth central. It's drug central. It's really, really low income town. A lot, like the whole town is Section 8. And it's bad. I mean, it's gotten really bad. It started off as a retirement community, and it was a cute old people town, and it was cute, and it was golf everywhere. And then it just turned into just a scary place to be, a really scary place to be. I mean, so, and I was right up in the middle of it when that transition happened. You know what I mean? I was partying as a teenager, and I just got into the drug scene, and I didn't have the ability to look into the future and think about something I wanted to do, because I was just, beating up my body, and I just didn't have the ability to do that at the time. You know what I mean? There were certain traumas and certain things that happened along the way that kind of kept me in that mode, and it just led to the worst of the worst, So once I got sober, I got pregnant like very soon after, which I kind of, it kept me sober, kept me clean, and forced me to think outside the box, because I couldn't, for daycare out here, it costs more than a mortgage. If you want to work full time, it's more than the cost of just to have a house, so it just wasn't a possibility for me. I didn't think that I had the ability to make enough to make that happen. So I just was like, I'm going to go back to school, and I'm going to work for my dad on my computer. That was like how it all started. Was my dad was just giving me articles to write, and he was paying me to find him interviews on podcasts.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. So he was my first client, and I was an employee of his, and he was just paying me hourly to set up as many podcast interviews as I could for him. And I did it for like a year and a half. of just him and I kind of figuring this thing out. You know what I mean? And eventually I still wasn't really thinking outside the box. I was just like, Dad, I need a raise. Like, I need to make more money. And he's like, you do not get a raise. You have a business. You need to go offer this to people. Like, you can do this, you know? And it was kind of like a boot out the nest a little bit, right? You know what I mean?
That's awesome though.
So yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. And he's been a huge mentor for me along the way, just kind of helping me dial things in and, you know, giving me advice about certain things. And it's been an incredible journey. As soon as I started doing that, and I just started emailing people, cold emailing people, and I just emailed the right people. I mean, I don't even know if it was me. It's like the universe, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, I just fell in line with the right people, and I got a couple shout outs on social media, and all of a sudden, you know, it just turned into this machine. And I had to hire people, and, you know, so, and it's been a pretty crazy journey now. Our network of podcasters is at like almost 700. I think it's at like 690 something right now that we have relationships with, that we place guests on their shows, and it grows substantially every month. So it's amazing.
So how long ago was this when kind of Dad gave you the boot into entrepreneurship?
It was 2 years ago. So it was February 2017. We had kind of planned it, and I told him, like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to stop working for you in February, you know, because it was kind of just where my finances were. I was actually recovering from Christmas. So I was like, February. Yeah. So, and then it was amazing because the first week, within the first 2 days, I made more than I made for him in a week doing what I was like, just in 2 days. No. And I was probably making, I can't remember exactly. I think I was making $12 an hour or something when I was working for him. And I was only working, you know, so it was just a really part-time job for me to make a little bit of extra cash. And I lined up probably 30, 40 interviews for him in that year and a half time period that I was doing that for him. And he was like, you can do this. Like, you're actually good at this, you know? So, and it worked. I mean, it was really crazy because I just kind of felt like I was just sending emails to people. That's really all I was doing, was just like emailing people and connecting dots. And it was really weird. Like, there was no way for me to train or prepare. I kind of had to just figure it out and see what works and what doesn't work. And it's been a process, but it's awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you just created it from nothing, right? That's truly entrepreneurship. I got an idea. I'm going to run with it.
Yep. I mean, it was very primitive when I was doing it for my dad. I was like tracking the interviews on spreadsheets, and, you know, it was like Word documents, and it was just, you know, it was like I was not utilizing the technology that I should have been when I was doing it for him. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay, so there's stuff that I can use that's going to help me with all of the things that I'm doing. And so, and a lot of that really, really got dialed in when I brought on my operations manager. Mm-hmm. I brought her in a few months, probably 4 months after I got started. I've known her for like 10 years. She's my good friend. And we started off as coworkers, and we were coworkers for like 5 years. And that's how our friendship began. So I knew we could work together.
Yeah.
And we're just two different, we think completely opposite. So we really complement each other in that way. And so she came in and she's like, oh, no, this has got to go. This has got to go. No. What are you doing, Courtney? This is good. You know, so it was but it was cool. I was like, thank you. This is why I brought you in, because it just, everything changed, and bringing in the team really just, you know, turned it into a machine.
People. We all need people like that, right? That counterbalance us out. So that's phenomenal. So, so let's talk about, you know, podcasting. That's your expertise. So why should entrepreneurs care? Why should people who want to build their brand, want to write a book, want to do some coaching, why should they care about podcasting?
Oh my gosh, there are so many reasons. I have like 50 reasons going through my head right now. So, I mean, the number one reason to, like, are you talking about listening to them or getting into the podcasting arena, like having a podcast or being a guest?
let's talk about the power of being a guest.
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
So something that I've learned just in my own experience is the first most amazing thing about being a guest on people's podcasts is the relationship that you get with that podcaster. I mean, the fact that you are a good guest for this person's podcast means that you have synchronicity going on in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And there's chances are you're going to be able to help each other in some way. Someone's going to have a client for someone. I mean, partnerships have happened where I was just on an interview right before this one. And I was talking about a client that I had who I set her up with one of the podcasters, and they completely partnered up after the interview. The interview was so amazing that they were like, whoa, like we have to work together. And they were offering each other's clients special pricing and you know what I mean, all this stuff. And that's just like number one reason why going on a podcast is good. Mm-hmm. But then when you are a guest on these people's podcasts and their audiences, we're making sure that their audiences are the people that need to hear your message, and you don't need to go on there and sell. Because all you have to do is go on there and tell your story, tell them what you're doing. And it's like they look at themselves and go, oh, I actually need to be connected to this person. Like I need to reach out to this person. You know what I mean? So you get to have that individual relationship with every audience member because they're choosing your content. They're choosing to listen to that episode. They've read the description. The podcasting industry is awesome because you can listen when you want to listen. You can listen to the episodes you want to listen to. It's very so it's every single, even if the audience is small, it's like valuable. It's really valuable, so, and then, once it goes live and you can use the content in different ways, and you can partner up with the podcaster in that sense as well to help promote it and to repurpose content and everything like that. So it's like an incredible tool.
Oh yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, my podcast and my business is called OnPurpose Growth, so we always do things very on purpose. And I've been noticing that I get multiple opportunities to leverage every single podcast. So mm-hmm. I just did one for somebody you introduced me to yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? I'm losing track of days, but it was Monday. Today's Wednesday, so. Yesterday I promoted that he was on, and when we ended it off camera, he said, hey, make sure you send this to me. We're going to blast it all across our social media. I'm like, everything that's done is very purposeful, and everybody you've delivered to me is right on point. We do not need it's like a couple seconds. We got this. I either talked to them like prior to or right before, and it's been great. So everything is
I'm so glad.
You practice what you preach. Let's just say that.
Thank you. That makes me so happy. I'm so glad. When I first started doing this, I was really nervous because I just wasn't sure how I was going to be received by the podcasters that I was working with, because I'm charging people to line up to put guests on their show, not my show. You know what I mean? So I wasn't sure how it was going to go. And it's been like the warmest reception. Like everyone's like, yeah, thank you. Like keep them coming. This is great. And it's like such a relief.
Yeah. So, how can they use these podcasts? How can people use these podcasts intentionally in their business? Let's talk more about that.
So I have clients that have been, and actually my team's been doing this for me too, putting them also on their website and making it really, really easily accessible across the board. You know what I mean? And so something we noticed is that SEO happens. Like there's SEO that happens. My team has gone to look up podcasts, and the guest interview on our client's website comes up first before the podcast does a lot of times. Like it's happened a few times where we're like, whoa, you know what I mean? So that's one of the awesome kind of back ways that you can use them. And so, and if you're leveraging each other's audiences in that way, it works like both ways. You know what I mean? It's really cool. I forgot the question. What was the question?
How can people use podcasts intentionally in their business?
Yes.
They should be thinking about this.
So my clients that I've noticed get the most return on their podcast, get them like just they have many offerings to offer the audiences, and it's not like go plug all these different offerings. It's just have them, you know what I mean? From a very low price point to, one-on-one coaching that's a really high package, you know what I mean? And then everything in between that you can think of, membership packages. I mean, and this is obviously not something that you can do overnight. And if you don't have all these things dialed in, it's not a reason why you shouldn't be going on podcasts. But really, like, the best way to get just everything that you can out of being in the podcasting arena is definitely making sure that everything that you have dialed in on the back end is just prepped and primed and ready to go. You know what I mean? So people can just, I'm going to follow him here, jump into his Facebook group. Oh, here's an ebook. You know what I mean? Like, think about all these different things, so that's definitely what I would say is really important. Also, it's also really important to make sure that you're communicating with these people that you're sending to, you're sending to your website and your social media channels, and you want to make sure that you communicate with that audience so it doesn't dissipate. Not everybody's going to buy right away. You know what I mean? What are you doing outside of the interviews? Do you have a blog? Do you have you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be other things going on, And maybe your goal isn't just to go make money, but if this is a business thing, you know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure that you have these things dialed in and ready to go.
Yeah, this is a piece of your personal brand, your company brand.
Right.
It's not
right.
the only driver. So one thing you said there that I caught, that I think people get stuck in, is they think they need to have everything set up to get started. And talk about that. Like,
that's why I kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit when I said that, because that doesn't mean that you can't get going and that you can't jump in and join the industry in some way, whether it's being a guest or starting your own. It's good to have those goals in mind and those things to work on, but get started. You know what I mean? It's a very, very low investment of time, and if it's money, it's not a huge investment. You know what I mean? It's worth it no matter what. Just like I said, because of the relationships that you get with these people, with the podcasters and the audiences, so it's powerful for sure.
And what I've noticed is there's just this, and you mentioned it too, I'm going to reaffirm it. There's this natural networking that happens, that I spend time with these other entrepreneurs. Like earlier this week, it was somebody from Cameron's he's in Canada or Ottawa or something like that. A couple weeks ago, it was a guy who was in Ireland or Scotland, right? I mean, I'm connecting people all across the world. And I'm learning things as I'm interviewing, right?
Yes. It's amazing.
It's a great way to, grow a network outside of a local community. And I'm sure you're connecting with people who are going through similar challenges or have been there before, and they're giving advice or help in those areas.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's happened to me twice in the last week.
Really?
With two different people, that it was like, wow, like we just had this really similar story, you know what I mean? And we're able to kind of like help each other in these like different ways. And yeah, it's amazing. It's so valuable, even if you don't have, everything's not perfect and everything's not, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. I
mean, you didn't have anything perfect. Your dad just kicked you out and said, go do this on your own, right?
Yes. And I still don't think I have everything perfect. I have a lot to work on still, you know what I mean, when it comes to my own stuff, so, and I'm just working my way up too, just like everybody else, you know what I mean? So,
You got started. That's the thing that matters.
Yes, you do it. You just jump in.
So, I want to backtrack a little bit, or give some people some context, because podcasting has morphed out of just iTunes. So talk about that. Talk about how podcasting works these days, because I think it's been redefined.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to stream it just outside of iTunes. I look at it more as just digital content. You know what I mean? People are repurposing it all over the place. I mean, YouTube, like literally, like start a YouTube channel and then repurpose that content into a podcast, and then start a blog off of the transcriptions of the podcast. You know what I mean? And then also have it be a live show on social media. You know what I mean? Like it's not just like there's not just one way to do it. Everybody's still really figuring this out. And as technology changes and, as it's all going to keep morphing and evolving, you know what I mean? So it's definitely not just localized just to podcasts on iTunes. You know what I mean? It's all over the place now.
It definitely has morphed more and a lot of video like this. Lots of
video, yeah.
Which it's easy to get it started, get a Zoom account and
yes,
press record, right?
Yeah, seriously, it's very easy. I didn't have to make a huge investment at all to start being a guest on podcasts. I had to buy a pair of headphones and a stand for my phone. You know what I mean? Like, right. So, and obviously you can go bigger into the production and stuff like that, but it's not 100% necessary to start diving in and making it happen.
Right. So, how do you think this helps, people's brands? Because I believe that you're working with a lot of, I'll call it solopreneurs or people who are their identity is the business. How is podcasting helping that?
So going on a lot of different podcasts for them is helping them. When you go on a podcast, you kind of leverage the host's expertise. You know what I mean? Like you're coming in, the host is vouching for you as a guest. And then everyone gets to hear you under this platform that is known and has a following. And it definitely helps with branding. I mean, especially when the audiences that they're speaking in front of are targeted. You know what I mean? It very much helps them. You can I tell people, because it's very regular for someone to go, oh, I heard you on one podcast and I went to the other podcast and the other podcast. So I make sure to tell people, don't just go on there and just talk about one thing on every single podcast. People are going to go, it's like you're creating your own show by going on all these other shows.
Right.
And you want to make sure that you're mixing up the content so that people don't go, meh, all she knows how to talk about is this. You know what I mean? Like, so it really helps. It helps them kind of dial in their message and all the different things they can talk about and how they can help this specific audience. And you know what I mean? Like it really just, it's just growth in all directions, I think.
And that leads back to what you're saying before is repurposing the content. If you're on podcasts and you're talking about something different, you can repurpose that easily. And if you're not, it's like, how do you keep using things?
Yeah. People have definitely been forced to get creative. And it's awesome. I love seeing it. It's amazing.
Now, what types of podcasts have you come across out there? Like what categories are they in?
Oh man. Well,
question, right?
so many. The ones we work with in our network, our largest networks are just blanket entrepreneurship authors, lots of business coaches and consulting of all types, life coaches, self-help, personal development, spirituality, fitness. I mean, all the big niches are who we work with in all honesty. My dad, my first client was he's in NLP. He's in psychology and mental health and all that. Yeah. So that's where the seed started. And then once I started cold emailing people, I was just authors. Anybody that had a book, like virtual, like digital book tour, like that's kind of what I was going for. And then that's when there's no authors or everybody, you know what I mean? Everybody who's in, like anybody who's in the online space could be an author and potentially is an author. And that's just everybody, so just by kind of having that framework, it kind of just, we're not really limited in terms of who we work with, you know what I mean? Yeah. But there are some podcasts out there. There's some pretty funky ones out there that,
it is the World Wide Web, and you do cross some really weird things.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, when somebody's like thinking about maybe creating their own podcast, what are your thoughts around it being either general or very specific? Like, should people be thinking a specific way or think about those?
It depends on the end game, I think. Yeah. If your goal is to just send people to your course and that's where you want people to go, and that you have a podcast and you interview these people and you have a course really that you're trying to seed growth in. Yeah, you want it to be kind of niche-y probably. But if you are looking at it more of, I like to look at it like, I plan on starting a podcast. I would like to think of it as more of an extension of all of who I am. You know what I mean? And that covers family and spirituality and, you know what I mean, entrepreneurship and, you know what I mean, like addiction for me, like all these different things. And so I think it really just kind of depends. I've spoken with a lot of podcasters who are like, I don't have really an end game in mind. Like I have a topic I like to discuss, or you know what I mean? And then it just so happens to still seed growth elsewhere, because I think more than anything, just authenticity and like just going out there and, I don't know. I just feel like hammering it in on these tiny little niches is probably not for me anyways. But I don't have that end game of like one thing that I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to expand everything. And so I think it kind of probably differs with everybody depending on what they're trying to do.
I tend to go on your side only because for me, it's, me and the brand,
Mm-hmm.
and as you know, right? Entrepreneurship and success is not just business. It's
No, it's everything.
Spiritual, it's everything.
Yes,
right? So if
it's
you don't
everything.
talk about it or work on it,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to work for you.
Exactly. Yep. I found the exact same thing for sure. It just doesn't, it wouldn't feel, I feel like the people that you're meant to work with are supposed to connect with you on all of these levels. And if you're just going out there going, no, I'm just into only marketing, but you have all of these other things going on, it's not going to connect with the people that you're trying to connect with, because they need all of that. You know what I mean? And that connection is important. I mean, even what we were saying earlier about just going on podcasts and being like, whoa, this is amazing that we have this connection. Like you're going to work with that person for a long time. Yeah. And it's because there was that like transparency and like vulnerability and connection, So
it sounds like authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability are qualities of good podcasts.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Why is that?
I definitely think so. I feel like people are kind of moving away from the whole staged everything is perfect model, and I just don't feel like people are really resonating with that anymore. People need to know that they're not alone in certain things, and you know what I mean? There are other people out there that are experiencing certain things, and I think there's a lot of topics that are being talked about right now, even on just entrepreneurial podcasts, that are like, they're connecting on these personal levels. And it's just, that is how it's happening now. You can't go out there and pretend like everything's perfect and really make a connection with people, because nobody's life is perfect. You know what I mean? Like people need that raw connection. And I think that's just something that people are moving towards, especially when they're consuming content. People are trying to better themselves now. Right. They really are. And that's why the podcasting industry is exploding, because so many people are going out there and going, you're not alone. I'm dealing with this too. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? And so it's really cool. I really especially love just like the entrepreneurial podcasts that are doing that, because they're just making that connection between the business world and the personal world,
Yeah. I had somebody on who I told you I was going to connect you to him. We talked about, what did he call it? The law of process, where there's people out there that try to circumvent the process of going through pain and going through adversity, like circumventing it, and you just can't do it, right?
You can't.
You can't.
You got to walk through the fire.
Right.
You got to do it.
That's interesting.
For sure.
So how do you think that on, we're talking about how everybody's actually doing this. They're bringing authenticity. They're bringing transparency and things like that. What do you think it's doing for their brands and their podcasts?
Well, I feel like once they open themselves up in that sense, it's like it creates just such a solid connection with the people around you. It's just like I've noticed, because I just decided probably a year ago to be like, you know what, I'm going to start talking about my addiction that I had, and I'm going to start just being completely open about stuff I'm dealing with right now. And the people that I get to talk to for work all the time are also like, how are things going with your daughter? And how is your divorce going? And you know what I mean? All this stuff. And it's just a very real connection. And I feel like it makes work feel less like work and more like we're all just living, and you know what I mean? We're all just helping each other. And it really just promotes a very positive connection with people. You know, vulnerability is one of those things that it might trigger the wrong person, but that's not the person that you want to work with anyways. And the people that are inspired by your vulnerability are going to reach out and be like, this is amazing, I'm also dealing with this. You know what I mean? So it just creates just a rock solid connection with your clients, and with, you know, you're not going to be dealing with, you know, backstabbing and people messing with you. And you know what I mean? Like, people are like, this is a real human being, you know, it's just a real connection.
So does it even actually just, this feels like who you are versus work?
Yeah, it definitely just feels like I'm just living. I don't really feel like I mean, I don't have to go to work every day. I work from home, you know, so, but it does just feel like living. It's really, really cool. It's definitely just like moving into alignment, you know, with everything. And I think that connection helps you kind of move into the alignment with the right people to where it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. Now, do you see that repeating, that kind of same, I will say, mindset or fulfillment across a lot of these other podcasters that are transparent, vulnerable, courageous?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Every single one that I've talked to about it is just like, just as blown away as I am.
You know, vulnerability and transparency is huge for me, because when I cross somebody who, you know, label as, hey, they don't like it, it just triggers something in me. As I don't necessarily want to do business with them, but it just triggered
Right.
something in that person is actually really sad that they can't open up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wish that they could, because if they would come to the other side is great, right?
Yes. Yes. It's like you being transparent forces other people to be transparent. You know what I mean? To where they're like, you seeing them triggered is like, oh, okay. You know,
Yeah.
I totally get that. I totally agree.
Yeah. I think it's something that is lacking in the world, that we need more of. And
Agreed.
I've noticed that everybody that I've had on that you've introduced me to, they have all those qualities, and like that, we've got a connection, right? I mean, they're not telling me their dirty, darkest secrets, but
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, I've done this and
Mm-hmm.
got through that, and I'm not embarrassed. One guy said that he had like all this debt and almost went bankrupt, and it was just,
Yeah.
you know, conversations just explode from those points.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Definitely. I agree. It's I love it. I love being a part of this industry just because of the conversations and the amazing connections, for sure.
Now, do you find that, now this is a sweeping assessment, but do you find that the greater the success, the greater the vulnerability somebody has?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something that I can look at and agree with, for sure. I mean, the people, my most successful clients are out there going, I was in prison and I was, you know what I mean? Like, it's true, you know, it's just people going out there and telling their stories. And, you know, I think that their stories aren't as uncommon as everyone thinks. It's just that people aren't talking about them. And it's like, you know, they need to realize how important it is to just start telling your story. I mean, someone told me on a podcast recently that, and I never intended for this. I just started being vulnerable, and he's like, so your story's really turned into a great way to pull in clients, hasn't it? I'm like, I guess. I mean, it's I guess it's just a weird thing that happened.
Well, that's the great thing about transparency and vulnerability. You didn't do it for that. And
Yeah.
that's the result.
It's organic. It's super organic.
Yeah. You know, I agree with you that there's the stories aren't unique. However, how do I say this properly? Like a lot of people have that story, but nobody's telling it, which because they're not telling it makes it seem
makes it seem unique. And that's also why so many people are like, wow, and like become attached to these people because they resonate with them so well. And it's like millions of people that have dealt with something along those lines. Like everyone should start talking about it because it's obvious that there's a trend happening. Like we're all really healing ourselves. And I'm noticing it collectively that like everybody is going, I'm going to change this about myself. I'm going to fix this. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to get over this and I'm going to forgive these people. You know what I mean? And so those people that are talking about it are definitely, it's great.
Yeah. Well, listen, Courtney, I appreciate you being on. This was a fantastic and awesome conversation. I always enjoy connecting with you. Why don't you share with everybody how they can find you and connect with you?
I enjoyed it so well. Thank you so much for having me. My website, zippycontent.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm actually on Facebook just as Courtney B right now. I'm going through a branding thing, as I was telling you earlier.
All good.
But yeah, you can find my business on Facebook. We're across the social media channels. You can reach out to me very easily if you want to reach out. So
cool.
Here I am.
Well, thank you, Courtney, and everybody. I can speak for Courtney. She has a phenomenal business. I work with her. It is definitely worth your while to reach out to her and learn about Zippy and learn about her. She's vulnerable herself, so and she's very authentic. So I appreciate everybody tuning into this episode of the OnPurpose Growth podcast, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the OnPurpose Growth podcast. Let us know what you thought in the comment section. For more from OnPurpose Growth, go to onpurposgrowth.com. Subscribe here at BLTV for all of our content, including the daily Learn About Law podcast, Seize Your Business, Making Real Estate Fun, and Logical Logistics podcast brought to you by O'Flaherty Law. Thanks for listening.